Okay, we're ready to go, guys. Thanks everybody for attending today. I'm not going to go through all these hybrid meeting rules. I think everybody knows what we're doing here. The one thing I do want to acknowledge today is that we've lost Warren Deschard. Warren was a member of this committee and he passed away going back, I guess, a few weeks ago now. We of course miss him. And there will be a celebration of his life, and I'm sure we'll be able to get some notification from city staff as to when that goes. I can provide you with that because I have that home somewhere. I'm going to assume no one has a declaration of conflict of interest. Seeing none, we don't have any presentation or delegations. Could I ask for a mover and a seconder for all the items that are before us today? Moved by Joshua, seconded by, I forget your first name, I'm so sorry.
Christina.
Yeah, thank you, Christina. So we've got 4.1. I understand we've got, Carol, you're going to give us a bit of a presentation, right?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so I think what I'm going to do next is ask if anybody has any concerns about the minutes, any changes or omissions to the minutes. Seeing none, we'll go ahead and vote on those. If I can see a show of hands to accept the minutes. Thank you, that carries. And Kara, let me ask you now to go ahead and get started with your presentation.
Thank you very much. Hi, everyone. My name is Kara Davey, and I am Arts and Culture Development Officer for the City of Brantford. I'm going to walk you through the results from the Cultural Stakeholder Engagement Survey. Next slide, please. At its meeting on April 26th, Brantford City Council supported the recommendation from the Community Heritage and Cultural Space Task Force to direct staff to collect feedback from Brantford's museums and wider cultural community through a specialized Let's Talk Brantford campaign that would investigate the need and desire for a community heritage and cultural space in Brantford. The first phase of consultation will help to formulate enough information for staff to provide to the public, with the goal of public responses being informed, valid opinions on whether a feasibility study would be a warranted next step. Next slide, please. Actually, you can stay on this one. I think Lisa, the response rate, if you go back one. Thank you. The request for engagement consultation was sent out to 47 stakeholders on May 5th. Reminders were sent on May 11th and May 30th. To date, 15 responses have been received. No stakeholders requested a phone or in-person interview to complete the survey. Responses have been received from the following organizations: Arcady, Bell Homestead National Historic Site, Brant County Singers, Brant Museum and Archives, Brant Theater Workshops, Brantford and Area Sports Hall of Recognition, Brantford Music Club, Brantford Potters Guild, Brantford Symphony Orchestra, Canadian Industrial Heritage Center, Glenhurst Art Gallery of Brant, Grand River Chorus, Ictus Theater Productions, I Think You're Grand, and Wilfrid Laurier University. Next slide, please. So 53% of respondents would be interested in relocating to a new facility, while 40% would not. One respondent was undecided. Next slide, please. Of those 53%, their needs are as follows: storage for costumes, props, lighting, sound equipment, music and instruments, space to build sets, rehearsal and performance space for 100 to 200 people, office space with a kitchen and bathroom up to 2,000 square feet for staff and volunteers, 2,500 square feet of studio space with kilns and unlimited access to monitor kilns, possibility of pottery retail space, 12,000 square foot warehouse with open space for only 2 months per year, parking for 100 vehicles, multi-purpose space up to 5,000 square feet, exhibit spaces 5,000 to 7,000 square feet, and 10,000 square feet modular collection storage with climate control for room and ongoing growth. Next slide, please. Of respondents who would not physically relocate their organization to a new facility, 50% would consider operating some type of programming out of a new facility. Next slide, please. 53% would be interested in relocating, 40% not, and one respondent undecided. This particular question was a check all that apply. So we received 20 responses from 15 individuals. And of those, 8 would consider being a permanent tenant, 8 would foresee being a time of use renter, and 4 respondents said other, but they did not specify what that relationship would look like. Next slide, please. Respondents currently operate programming out of the following spaces. Many currently own or rent a facility. Some have no current spaces. Performance and or special events in hotel conference spaces, churches, former schools, warehouses, community halls and centers, library, museums, Wilfrid Laurier University Theatre, and the Sanderson Center. Programs offered at Cordage Heritage District in rented space, and storage in personal garage, rented space, or existing programming space. Next slide, please. We received a significant range of responses to the question about fees, and those responses include $0 and or do not need, $100 a month for storage, $20 for rehearsal with 24 rehearsals per theater show, $600 to $700 a week for performance space for two-week run, $500 for special events. Would vary for sales. Yes.
So if you can just repeat yourself, our internet has cut out a little bit there.
Can you hear me? Okay, what was the last thing you heard there, Lisa?
We heard you were telling us the amounts that people could
okay.
pay.
Okay. So we did receive a significant range of responses to this question, which includes $0 and or do not need, $100 a month for storage, $20 for rehearsal with 24 rehearsals per theater show, $600 to $700 a week for performance space with a 2-week run, $200 to $500 for special events. It would vary depending on program and ticket sales, $500 per month. One respondent indicated that they currently pay $1,600 a month for a rehearsal hall. Another said they would pay $4,000 a month for 12,000 square feet of warehouse space 2 months of the year. And others said they would pay a small rental fee, and one expressed that current rent is doubled for the next 3 years, so they would have to increase their fees. Next slide, please. 27% of respondents believe that the city should provide a new space free of charge for organizations to relocate to permanently and or operate as time of use renter. 53% do not believe the City of Brantford should provide this space free of charge, and the remainder is undecided. Next slide, please. So of the benefits listed, many respondents indicated theater groups said that they would need space for performance, rehearsal, storage, set design, better lighting and sound. Another benefit would be shared operating expenses, resources, and talent. Need for a larger event, conference convention space to hold 250, 300 people. Space would not benefit some organizations, but they indicate it would benefit the community. Others said storage and event space would be helpful for annual events. One respondent noted that this project seems to conflict with Cultural Hub at One Market, which is already underway. If the focus is on museums and not performing arts, there could be some intersection with Wilfrid Laurier programming. Inspirational Hub could bring people together. Larger space would provide opportunity to offer larger, more impactful exhibits. And it could provide external space that is accessible by bus when the home facility is not. Next slide, please. 11 respondents, or 73.3%, indicated that they know other groups outside the cultural community who would benefit from the space, while 4 respondents, which is 26.7%, indicated that they do not know of any groups outside the cultural community who could benefit from this space. Next slide, please. Responses to this question included some organizations that do already exist within the museum and cultural community. Some of those names are community theater groups, community music groups, visual arts groups, in addition to dance, music festivals, Conestoga College, not-profit groups, senior groups, country market, and churches. Next slide, please. We received many comments about the need for performance space and the need to review previous research already conducted by the Cultural Hub Task Force, rather than broader heritage or cultural space needed by museums or galleries. If the city invests in a hub, it needs to invest in the partner groups to help them succeed. There's a need for public facing building and collection storage. Performing arts groups needs props and costume storage. And the facility must prioritize being visible to the community and accessible. A hub should contain commercial, social, and cultural groups. So this concludes a summary of feedback we received through the Let's Talk Brantford campaign. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much for that. So this item is before us on the floor. The resolution calls for us to receive the report that's before us. It doesn't indicate any action that the committee would recommend staff take. Councillor Sless, I see you're the first one with his hand up. In the room here, we'll just show our hand like this, if you don't mind, and we'll watch out for the guys on the screen. John, go ahead, please.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chairman. In question 9, it said, if you could bring that back up onto the screen, please. Question 9. Did they identify, in question 9, did they identify who these other organizations or ad hoc groups are?
Through the chair, many groups were actually named who did participate in the survey. So this could have been a question that was a little bit misinterpreted, but many cultural organizations were named, and the question asked them to name organizations outside of the museum and cultural community. So for example, Brant Theatre Workshops, Brantford School of Instrumental Music, Glenhurst Art Gallery, and Brantford Potters Guild were identified. They were already invited to respond to the survey. CARP was a senior group that was identified as well by name, but the other ones were more generic responses, such as not-for-profit groups, country markets, churches, festivals, etc.
Okay, thank you. And then second, question number 11, if you could bring that up, please. Point 2, can you elaborate? What does that mean? Invest in groups to help them succeed. Does that mean financially, or does that mean mentor? I'm not sure what that means.
Through the chair, Sarah Monroe, Acting Director of Economic Development and Tourism Services. So the response to this question, this is almost verbatim what this organization did say. So we can really only allude to what they meant by it. A lot of the time when we're talking about performing arts groups in particular, they're looking for project-based funding, operating funding, and mentorship or support with marketing. So it really varies depending on the organization. In the conversations that we had about the cultural hub at One Market, as an example, some of the comments we received really alluded to the fact that organizations may not have the financial capacity to rent space. So it would be something to consider to develop a pilot grant program to help them to invest more time in their marketing and more time in their programs and not having to worry so much about ticket sales. So that's one of the examples, but it would be dependent on each of the organizations and where their own capacity is limited.
Okay, thank you. And I guess just back to the breakdown, it seemed to me that they were almost 50-50. Some thought it was a good idea, some didn't, and they were roughly split on that. Is that correct? 53-40 something? Is that? And that's a sample size of 15?
That's correct. It was 53% versus 27%.
And where did the rest of the group go?
Sorry, 53% versus 40%, and one respondent was undecided.
Okay, so that's a sample size of 15 groups, was that?
That's correct. 47 were surveyed, but we only received 15 responses.
Okay, did we do any follow-up with the group that was included in the 47 that didn't respond? Was there no response because there was nobody to do it, or was there no response because there was no interest? Or did we get a reason why? Did we reach out to the ones that didn't respond and say, you know, you didn't respond, we were just wondering why?
Through the chair, we have not asked them why they didn't respond, but they were each given 3 emails, and then there was individual follow-up for organizations that did not respond.
Right. Well, it's just, I think it would be important with only about 1/3 of them responding. It means 2/3 of them we're not sure what they're thinking. And we can't force people to tell us what they're thinking. I get that part, but I just wondered if we reached out and whether the reason they're not responding is because they have no interest in it, or is there another reason? Because I think that would be important if only 32% cared enough to respond, and of that 32%, it was almost split evenly, those that thought it was a good idea and those that didn't think it was a good idea. So when I look at all that data, it tells me there's not a whole lot of interest. I don't, that's just my opinion. You know, you don't have to comment on that, Kara, but it's just, that's what I would draw from what I've just seen. Maybe others have different conclusions. I'd certainly like to hear them. Thank you.
John, thank you. Joshua, go ahead.
Awesome. Just questions, or are we doing debate? Is this on the floor?
The floor is yours.
Great. Okay, so I had a lot of questions. Councillor Sless had some great questions. Councillor Sless, did anybody who we attempted to reach out after the survey had closed and be like, oh, I missed it?
Through the chair, nobody reached out after the fact.
Okay. And I stand by what Councillor Sless said. Maybe we need to put this back in the oven and give it another round and see if we can get more respondents. I'd like to see, and we've got nothing but time, I suppose, for a project if we're only getting a third of the people responding, but I'd like to hear what everybody else has to say about potentially trying again. And then comments, clearly there's a need for performance space, though I don't necessarily know that that was the intent of this, what are we, a task force? Yeah, task force, thank you. I think that was the work of the cultural advisory, the cultural hub, which is what it turned into. Well, this was more intended to be, I don't know, maybe I'm just repeating my own words, but I remember this being about like museums and galleries and and then there could be a performance space attached to that, because it kind of makes sense if you're going to have people gather and there's going to be arts, you could celebrate by having performance. But this seems very heavily weighted towards what the work we've already done. And I don't know if that was what we had intended. So.
Thank you. Peter, go ahead, please.
You I think you're first. You're first. Go first.
Carry on, Peter.
Okay. It's a valid point, both councillors, but from being in the middle of the battle, I've been here for 40 years trying to get performance spaces together and promote culture here. I think there's a tremendous confusion here in both the arts and the museum groups. We've gone through so many feasibility studies, so many studies, and we ended up in a basement of a shopping mall. It doesn't, it's like you don't jump out there and go, yeah, let's get in that shopping mall basement. The way it's presented to the larger community, this, I mean, it's a great thing, Cara, that you did, but it's not, doesn't have a vision with it. It's just, who wants to move? Doesn't say where, doesn't say what it's going to be like, wasn't, so I can't see that this is a, I think we would have to have a vision, and that's how we would get responses. But to just get responses, I mean, you're going to get it from the performing community, because we don't have anything here to use except the Sanderson Center, and that's very difficult. So I think it's not that people don't want to respond, it's that they don't really know what they're responding to. So thank you.
Cheryl, would you like to go next, or shall I have Christina go next?
You can go ahead, Christina. Of the 15 participants, I recall there was Brant Museum and Archives, and CIHC, and there was Glenhurst. And those were the three museums and galleries participants who actually did the survey. So of the 42 that we reached out to, how many of them were galleries and museums? Are they mostly performance groups? I think it's good to get the numbers right? We're expected to hear more from museums and galleries, and we only heard from 3 of them.
Through the chair, there were 5 museums and galleries. Bell Homestead, Brant Museums and Archives, Canadian Industrial Heritage Center. We had
So
more.
that's 5 out of 15.
Yes, 5 in total.
How many out of the 40,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, but I was asking out of 42 or out of how many we reached out to.
Through the chair, are you asking how many museums and galleries we reached out to? I'd have to get back to you on that. I believe at our last task force meeting, we did circulate the list of respondents this was going to. So it did include all the museums and galleries in Brantford, but I'd have to look at what exactly that number is.
Through the chair, sorry, the survey was sent to all museums in Brantford, the County of Brant, and 6 Nations that align with ICOM's definition of a museum. And I believe that's about 20 overall. When we did do the museum sustainability plan about 1.5 years ago, all of the museums but 2 in Brantford specifically, the museums are owned and operated by the organization or by the City of Brantford. So there are only 2 museums in the City of Brantford that are owned by a different organization and they're operated by a third party. Both of those are operated by the Brant Historical Society, so Myrtleville House Museum and the Brant Museum and Archives. Brant Museum and Archives owns their own space and they operate it. And then they do not own Myrtleville House Museum, that's operated by or owned by a third party. They operate it. All of the other museums in Brantford either own their own space or the City of Brantford owns the space. So that may explain why they're hesitant to move to another facility, because their capital upgrades and their lease with the City of Brantford is a really strong benefit for them. So a lot of them might be interested. That comment that was received about the facility not being accessible by bus is actually from the Bell Homestead. So their facility, they are not accessible on city bus routes. So they might be interested in doing outreach programs at a space that would be on a city bus route, as an example.
So the question, would you like to move? Might not have been the right one if they didn't have the power to choose to move.
Mhm.
And maybe that's why they didn't respond.
Thanks, Christine. Sure.
Thank you. It's perfect,
And
actually.
Andy, you're up next.
Because all 3 of those comments kind of fold into some of the thoughts I had. I also see a lot of response in terms of cultural hub. Maybe, maybe we needed to see that through, but to Councillor Curry's point, we missed something there, right? We didn't include the museums and galleries to the level that we should have. So I think this is a really good exercise. But based on, I kind of had the same question. So the five respondents that we had for museums and galleries, how many of those said they didn't want to move? And we want, maybe they can't, but of the 5, how many of those say no to move? I'm just trying to word it properly.
I can answer about the big 3. Okay.
Yeah.
So we did have a letter of support from the Military Museum. The Brant Museum and Archives is interested in being part of a centralized museum building. And CIHC as well. They're fully supportive. And our original vision was seeing those people be the prime tenants in this building. Right. And I think, sorry, carry on, Cheryl. I don't want to.
So, no, that's okay. And maybe we don't have some of these answers
Yeah.
yet, but in terms of those 3, we don't know yet, maybe, but how comparatively, what would if they're willing to be permanent tenants, how is that going to change the fees that they're paying now? Because maybe they have a nominal fee. So that may be part of it. And I think to the comment about vision, I think although it's on culture, everybody's having a hard time wrapping their head around putting this all into one spot. And because there's been a lot of focus on the cultural hub, it's difficult to pull that in. So maybe that's something we need to address in terms of how do we just give culture a leg up and more than a leg up, you know, support them in the way that we support other sectors. And I know we pick on sports, but it's a good analogy because we're missing a huge part of our community, and especially as our demographics are changing, I think we're missing more and more of our. So yeah, I have some of the same concerns. But thank you for this survey, and we know that traditionally we do have a hard time getting respondents to these things.
Sure, thank you. Andy, you're up. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Through you to other members on the committee, I just wanted to get some clarification. When I joined the committee, I was a spectator at that episode when we came in, and I think it was Peter who was representing the performance people at the time, and he was making a very, and that got me thinking about the community around the cultural hub, and I think since then I've spoken to staff either through Lisa or someone else about a clarification on that. But I don't know if this is something that we want to talk about here, or is this something we can talk in new business. But I would like to see if there's a way for us to, and I'll put it in 2 points. One, I think if we empower ourselves to divvy up the list and go to the individual people and get a clarification and say, look, here's what we're intending to do. It could benefit you or might not benefit you. Let us know face to face, tell us what it is. The other one is understanding the general vision for performance artists and culture, because outside of this council, I'm a businessman and I'm a supporter of the community. And I think there are many business people out there, companies out there who would like to be patrons of the arts, who would like to help sponsor, and who would probably say, look, let's move towards a cultural hub and allow us to then figure out a way to involve you and find the ways to support you. So I'm sorry, the question being posed is this something I should talk about in new business, or is this something that's germane now? And if it is that something that we can talk at the end of everybody else's discussion and see if it could hold water?
Andy, we're very informal here, so we're gonna discuss anything that members of the committee wish to. Okay. So we're going to have additional speaking opportunities as we come through. I think everybody's gone once. I want to highlight what Peter said with respect to the questions that we've asked and how we frame them. And I think it's absolutely spot on that we didn't have a model to share with the people that we have discussed with, right? There's another committee member who was hoping to be a part of this who didn't make it this far. He had some schematic drawings, and I've seen those. And it really would help to frame the discussion if we could show people something on a piece of paper that says, here's a museum, here's a common portal, here's some parking, here's a big space. And I see we have a volunteer. We can talk more about that in the workshop here today, but and the other piece that we should know is that Sarah and I were actually hoping to meet with some of the key people, but because of COVID and because of some staff shortages here, Sarah's been wearing 17 or 18 hats, and that just hasn't been possible. And probably going forward, that's not going to be possible for some time. But I think I'm sensing that people are a little frustrated. Because we've asked some questions and we've gotten some answers, and we've gotten the answers we've gotten because we asked the questions that we asked, right? And maybe we do need to frame it around something visual. And Joshua raised it too, but in terms of visioning for this, I think what we originally, small group of us originally saw was under one roof, a partnership of 3 significant community partner tenants, the 3 museums, right? The Cocksha folks also have an idea about some outdoor space. Then that, under that same roof, You could accommodate perhaps the farmer's market indoor and outdoor. Perhaps you could accommodate some of the big charity things that we do, like help me out
The
here,
book fair.
the book fair,
Christmas.
things like that, right? Which also support the arts. And then, allowing, it's not going to be, maybe not the center for theatrical performances, but you sure could, on market day, you sure could come in and do something in a 1-day thing, right? Or the Genealogical Society could come in and spend the day in the hallway, right? So that's kind of the vision that we originally had. And maybe it's kind of gone off the rails because, as Peter said, we got nothing to look at. So
Do you have a budget?
No.
we have no budget yet.
You have no.
That's
budget.
part of the vision.
I'm gonna go to let me think now, who's next in the speaking order? I think it's Joshua and then
John was
Councillor
first.
Sless.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll go first, sure.
Yeah.
As long as
Go ahead.
Councilor Sless is okay with that.
Yeah.
I got a lot of stuff I want to say, but I mean, I want to just kind of think about like everybody's time here. I think we need to have a strategy session, a sit down session where this committee sits down and works together with staff to create that vision, to create that idea, and then to work with the stakeholders who are engaged. Councillor Antosky mentioned sports, and I mean, I'll be honest, I don't have a hard time seeing this vision. I envision the Wayne Gretzky Sports Center, but for museums, right? You can go to the Wayne Gretzky Sports Center and you can play badminton, you can go swimming, you can play hockey, you can run on the track, you can go to the gym. What I picture is a facility where I can go and see exhibits from the Woodland Cultural Center. It's not the Woodland Cultural Center. If I want to go there, I can, but I would be able to go to this one location and see something from there, but also something from the Bell Homestead and something from the Brant Historical Society and something from Myrtleville and something from the Circus Museum in town or the Train Museum in town, or like a whole bunch of exhibits that change out frequently. And at the same time, there's some sort of amphitheater or some sort of lecture room where you could see a one-act play, or you could see a band perform, or a foyer, kind of like the Max Sherman foyer here, where buskers could set up, or juggling stuff. I don't see it as our mid-sized performance theater, but we've had that conversation, and not everyone is ecstatic about it, but it is what it is for that, and that's a big project. But I see a Wayne Gretzky Sports Center for the arts, for the, where it's just a bunch of museums came together. Maybe they still have roots in our community at their own locations, but that they have these various rooms of. So anyway, that was what I thought we were here to kind of talk about and to create and to present and potentially put together. And I think unless we can sit down and come up with like what our vision is going to be, drawings are one thing, but I mean, anybody who's in this should be able to know or visualize this in their head. A bunch of museums coming together to share space, to promote culture and heritage in our community, etc.
Excellent. I'm going to John Sless next. John, I think you did have your hand up, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. I took it down, but if you're going to recognize me, I got a couple of questions I'll ask. One is that the numbers were kind of thrown out there pretty quick, but I heard numbers that were handed out. There was 5,000 for storage square feet and 2,000 for this and 4,000. Do we have a handle on that number? The overall number?
For the chair, it's quite a range because it depended on the varying needs of the respondents. But it ranges from 2,000 square feet to 10,000 square feet.
For
So
each individual type of thing. But
yeah.
like some was storage, some was display, some was performance. There was a number of components to that as you were spewing them out, I couldn't keep up with you, but it sounded like we're looking at a very, very, very large footprint of square footage. Is that fair to say?
That's fair to say. And we can compile all this into an email to share with the task force following the meeting if you'd like to review these numbers.
No, I just wondered, like, I think all the groups are kind of blue skying and they're going to put their order in as large as you can make it, knowing that it'll probably get pared down. So I understand that. It's just we're starting, I think, from what I heard, a very large amount of square footage. The other thing, the recommendation today is to receive the report. We're not approving anything. We're not giving any direction. We're simply saying, okay, you got all this information, and today we're going to officially receive it. Is that all we're doing today?
That's correct, John, yeah.
Okay. Well, I guess from my perspective, there's nothing here that I would say we shouldn't receive, so I'll be happy to support that. Thank you.
Peter, I think you were next.
Thank you. We are currently, CIHC and BTW are currently quite far along in the process of determining our space at 66 Mohawk,
Yeah.
which we are not able to build on yet because of the Survivor Secretariat yet. We have a lease. We have drawings, we have a vision, and it's very much what we're talking about here. We have a feasibility study underway right now.
Social enterprise.
On social enterprise to help support it. We have drawings by MMC architects. We've done presentations to 3 or 4 community groups. So I think, okay, so museums, static, performing, active.
Museums are not static.
They shouldn't be.
They are not
They
static.
should not be static. Exactly my point. So you have this vision of if you walk into I respect the museum, it's a great source, but you walk in and it's just that. There's nothing going on there.
And they should be.
There should be something.
Yes.
So why wouldn't you have culture to enliven that? It makes no sense to me to build a large static building. It just makes no sense at all. And in terms of the cultural hub, I'm fully in support of that. My daughter went to Laurier. She struggled with no performing facility there. So it would be great if they had a performing facility. But realistically, I think we could do better than that. And I think by combining the two, I mean, you've been to our Memories Project, right? Where we combine heritage and culture. You could come see my play, Johnny Place and Eagle Place, Johnny Cash and Eagle Place out at Bell Homestead, see it, combine culture. The marriage of the two is, I believe, very important and the only way we can achieve our cultural goals in this city. You have one group advocating for one thing and one group advocating for the other. There's no reason we couldn't have one facility that married the two.
Chair has completely lost track of who's in the queue. I'm sorry to say. Andy, how about if you go next?
So this comes back to the point where when I first joined the committee and I was listening in and I couldn't say anything because I was just a community a follower and not whatever it is. But I see the argument that both Peter and others have made, and Josh has made the valuable thing, and I want to make a contribution as well. And I'm thinking, like, I think that when I first heard this discussion, and I know Peter was, correct me if I'm wrong for a second, through you, Mr. Speaker, to Peter, you were the one who when a couple months ago when we had the meeting back in February when I joined, you were bringing up the argument about performance spaces. You were talking about performance. You're the guy. Okay, perfect. So I felt Peter's point, and then I said to myself, maybe we're undershooting the goal here. Like, I think what we should be, and in my opinion, and I want to share my vision, and maybe we should make a motion to accept the stuff and then have another motion to actually get together and talk. But I think we're undershooting the goal. I think the cultural hub is fantastic, but build a sector around it, like a Beale Street, like a Saint Denis, like a Lower Ossington. Like, I walk up the street from where we're proposing the hub. I'm passing the Harmony Square. I'm heading towards the pawn shop and the RBC, and I see storefronts that could easily be turned into like clubs, free clubs. People walk in, and you're talking about White Night in Toronto or Hamilton. We could do it here in Brantford. We can reclaim a sector. And then my understanding is that there's still a desire by certain members of the administration to build or have a hotel built by the casino, and you'd have to build one of those Halifax type of bridges like they have at CN Tower, which could easily be on the spot museum spots, right? Like, with artistry and people roaming around taking pictures. There's security guards making sure nobody steals anything. But I think we should be looking at an art sector for those who are interested in performance and culture. Like, I know that I had a conversation with Don Zver, because my wife's family is, related to Schuler Pottery, and Schuler Pottery was big in Brantford. And it's like, he wouldn't mind creating some sort of satellite Rose Cafe somewhere along the line, down the street. And then, there'd be pottery in the front, pottery in the back, pottery everywhere you could see. And at the same time, next door, there could be a blues club that is all it's doing is like showcasing blues talent from this area. And you just walk up the street to Harmony Square, and instead of, those empty spots that are for rent, move some of the farmers market in there. I wouldn't mind going in, getting cheese and cold cuts and everything while I'm buying, listening to a busker out in the middle, or impromptu concert in front of Hudson Public. And then, it makes the downtown a place for people to go to, make the sector where culture can thrive. And then people will follow with more real estate open, with more sponsorship from business and people. It doesn't have to be on the shoulder of the city. I think we could do it. I think there would be enough momentum to do that. And I would love to bring my vision and with everybody else's vision together and see what we can do. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a broader thought process, Andy, and thanks for introducing that. This certainly could be a catalyst. We've all had a crack at a couple of speaking opportunities. Sarah, can I ask you, if there's an opportunity for the committee members rather, to get together and do what Peter has suggested, to get a couple of rolls of paper and perhaps have somebody in the corporation that's skilled at convening an event like that. We could all spend a couple of hours in the same room without an agenda, just some pencils and some brains. Sarah, is that something that we could arrange maybe sooner rather than later?
So that's definitely feasible. I'm not sure if there's staff expertise available to lead visioning sessions. You might want to amend the recommendation to include a minor amount of money to be able to bring in someone whose expertise is in visioning. At the absence of potentially someone internally. I wouldn't want to come back to this group and say we don't have anyone and then have to rehash this same conversation versus being able to request some funds from council. And if we aren't able to find internal expertise or expertise in kind from the public sector, from the private sector, then we might be able to bring someone in who specializes in this kind of session.
I was actually thinking of Maria Visaggi.
We can certainly ask Maria.
Yeah. Why don't we do that? I don't know that we really need an expert so much as we need a convener and a moderator.
Cat herder.
A cat herder, should I say. Christina. Yeah, go ahead.
As someone who worked in the museum sector for over 15 years, if you want 3 museums to come under one roof, you cannot move their full operation under one roof. That is not possible. The only way this can be done is to put together exhibit spaces so they could share, but put storage elsewhere. So storage and workspace would be under one roof. And the reason why the museums who ask for a lot of storage space is because all museums need a lot of space, and storage spaces need to be professionally designed, right? And if we can build an external storage space where all museums can share, and they could have shared workspace too, and put together exhibit spaces under one roof, to me, that is the only possible solution if you want to bring 3 museums under one roof.
Go ahead, Cheryl.
Thank you. That's an interesting, thank you for that. So I just have a question about that. Does that change how we look at things in terms of 3 museums being anchor tenants, right? Maybe if the thought is that we can't move them entirely there, but they can have a presence, do we need to rethink the feasibility financially somehow? And maybe for the visioning sense.
So do we want to close down the Military Museum and have They're full operation, move to a new building, or what's our vision? Do we
Well,
want to?
let me jump in. I don't think, it's not like we're running a sprint here, right? It's more of a relay race. So we're going to start out with some ideas. And then we're going to talk to our partners about what they think about the ideas that the committee has, right? And the partners will say, I like it, I don't like it, that works, that doesn't work. And then we, it's like we do here at the City of Brantford. We innovate, right? So you try something, if it works, great. If it doesn't, you start over and do it again. So that's maybe the process that this committee is going to use, right? We'll take some ideas, we'll judge them, we'll weigh them. And, I think in the end, we'll probably have something that we can recommend that works.
I'm just going to comment directly on that. I think that there are some people who can't move. Their location is specific to what their museum or what their organization is about. But then there are those that are paying lease or paying rent to somebody. And in some cases, I think Sarah said, to the city. So if the city was going to build a facility, to be able to build a custom built facility for those people, while also having rotating exhibits from the locations that can't, I envision it as like a place where you would walk in and you might see an exhibit from the Bell Homestead, and they're like, to see the full thing, come on out. In fact, there's even a shuttle bus that takes you right there, or something to do with Brantford Transit, right? Or, so I do think that someone like the they don't own their space, the military museum, right?
We own it.
We own it.
Yes.
Well, that building could be better served maybe for something else, while at the same time, this new location becoming a permanent home. The Brant Museum, that's just a heritage building. That doesn't have any significance other than the fact that it's a heritage building. That's just where they happen to have all of their exhibits. They may want to move in, but they own the building.
The Historical Society owns the building.
But maybe they could, so I think it's kind of a whole bunch of different things. There are some people there are some people who this would be a perfect prime place to lease or to be using grant money that they receive for that. And then there are people who would never, ever be able to move their stuff permanently, but it could be used as an exhibit space. Satellite. Thank you, Councilor Antosky. And a way to draw attention to the other cultural assets in the community. It can be everything to everyone. All things to it's definitely lofty.
I want to come back to what Cheryl said. The analogy to Gretzky Center, Joshua said it too. We've done okay by sport and recreation at the City of Brantford, right? And there've been a lot of us for a lot of years that want to see the same thing happen for arts and culture. There's no reason that we shouldn't make that investment. So Sarah, do you need anything from the committee to enable you to arrange the get-together for us?
Perhaps we could have music and buskers and a small theater performance, maybe some exhibit. Sorry, Sarah.
Councilor, you'd have to add that as an amendment, I'm afraid. Sarah.
So we have been discussing as staff what we believe is potentially the most effective way to get what we think you are trying to get done. What I would recommend would be to form a subcommittee of this group here. That subcommittee could lead a visioning process, and that visioning process could be done with the original stakeholders at the table and invited to participate. That would mean that you would not need to have quorum. You would not need to have formal clerking of the meetings. You can be a little bit more flexible upon council approval. And then you can report back to this committee when that visioning session is complete. So you would need to have representatives from this group as members of the subcommittee that don't represent a quorum of this task force.
Perfect.
So quorum is 5. So a committee of 4 would keep you at a quorum.
So quorum for this organization is 5?
That's correct.
Okay. All right. Good idea. So moved by Councilor Wall.
Absolutely.
Seconded by Peter. That the committee create a subcommittee consisting of the following members. Four.
Sure.
Sorry, Andy. Okay.
I'm good with that.
Can you just announce those names for me one more time?
I'd like to join the subcommittee.
Yeah, so we've got Andy, we've got Christina, we've got Peter, we've got me. That's 4. Everybody good with that?
Mhm.
John, they're good with you? Okay. So Joshua has moved it. And Sarah, should we ask for some money and then hope that we won't need it?
Yes, I would recommend that if the communications, community engagement, and customer service department does not believe they have the expertise rather than coming back to this committee. So we've recently undertaken a project with a visioning session for a day that cost under $2,000. So
Okay.
if you wanted to earmark that perhaps from council priorities, that might be a good idea. And then you would want to include another clause to direct staff to undertake a visioning process led by that communications, community engagement, and customer service department, or through a third-party consultant with the funding, whichever staff deem appropriate for this particular visioning process.
So
Yes.
resolution then includes a maximum of $2,000 for the hiring of professional staff to convene a visioning session.
Not the exact words I would have used, but yeah, it's what I intended.
Something like that. That's
Yeah.
what you were about to say, right?
Honestly, it's as if you can read my mind. That's okay with my seconder?
Yeah,
It's friendly?
That's great.
So is that suitable, Sarah, then?
I can work out the wording with Lisa, yes.
Excellent, thank you. Then we will call the question on this amendment that's before us. So a show of hands, all those in favor? And that's unanimous, okay. Anything else, folks?
Yeah, I'm gonna say.
That's the amendment. You'll need to vote on the motion as a whole,
Yeah, we will. Yeah,
just making sure.
yeah. Anything else on this amendment?
I did want to say thank you on the record for anybody who's going to watch this YouTube video after the fact, to everybody who did respond. I read that, I read every line, and it's crystal clear what people want and need in this community. And I only wish is that more people had completed it, but that should not discount the people who did. They took time out of their day to contribute, and to everybody on this committee. This is very important, very powerful stuff, and we are helping mold and shape the cultural future of this community, which Councilor McCurry was saying that we've done a great job with recreation and sports, and it's about time we caught up and we started doing the same thing for history and heritage and culture. So this new subcommittee is going to do great work. I am certain of it, and I can't wait to see what you report back.
Super. I think we'll go to the vote on this, folks. And I'll ask for a show of hands, all those in favor of receiving and Joshua's amendment. So those in favor, and that's unanimous as well. And that concludes everything that's before us today.
Motion to adjourn.
So we are adjourned. Thanks very much, everybody, for being with us today. And to those of you who are with us on the TV screen, that's equally applicable. Thanks very much, guys. We'll see you again soon.